Welcome to another edition of the Adventures in Alchemy podcast. This is Michelle Martin Dobbins, your hostess with the mostest. I am the creator of dailyalchemy.com and the Moon and Magic Planner 2020 versions coming soon. So as I alluded to previous episodes 2 weeks ago, I took in quite a big break from podcasting, and so I'm kind of doing a slow onboarding and playing with how best to be of service. So today I'm going to be talking to you a bit about my thoughts on blessing versus charming and which way I'm leaning towards right now. So why don't I just jump in and do a little charm, right? Try to be charming. I'm not doing so well today. I'm stumbling a lot. Let me do that first, and then I'll tell you why I'm stumbling. I charm this podcast episode to be of service, to let divine ideas flow through it, and to bring value to all who listen. Yeah. So I have been doing something with a lot of the things where I speak and just blessing things. And so then I've been thinking about it on and off for a while of why blessing things is good and great. And if you do that and you continue to do that, I think that's awesome. And I'm just kind of playing with doing something a little bit differently because I've had something on my mind, for probably like 6 months or so. Is if you go back in the archives of Daily Alchemy, you will see that I have I may even have a podcast episode, I'm not sure, but I do have a whole blog post on the powers of blessing. And for me, blessing is like speaking out loud good intentions for someone. And a blessing can be a prayer too. But like, may we, or may you, or may whatever, may this happen, right? So speaking out good intentions in the world. And I still think that's really good thing to do. But I'll tell you why I kind of got like twisted around and started thinking that just maybe that wasn't the best languaging, at least for me. And so I'm playing with changing it, and I may change it more. So before we dive in too much, I want you to listen because I have some action steps for you to try at the end. Actually, an experiment. That's better wording for me because I do the experiments with the temporarily closed Daily Alchemy Premium Members Lab, where we do lab experiments in magic. And, magic experiments are definitely different from science experiments because magic is much more of an art, right? It's not a science. It is affected by the person doing it, the magician, the witch, the curious newbie, the whoever decides to do something and intend to create magic. Your vibration, your soul, your essence is going to affect the outcome, which is totally opposite of what we think science to be. Doesn't matter who does it, if they follow the formula, they get the same outcome. Although there are interesting things with science, maybe not so much affecting the outcome, but they have. Is that the slit experiment? And I'm sorry, I didn't look this up. I didn't mean to say this. I think I've gone off on a tangent already, only 4 minutes in. But the slit experiment where they saw that people's observations changed in the behaviors of, I think it was molecules, atoms. So to me, that's just, there's somewhere in there that magic and science kind of merge, right? But I think there will always be an art to magic, just, so many other things in the world, like medicine, even though there's this drug does this thing, but a really good doctor, there's an art to practicing medicine well. So that tangent, I'm going to turn it around and go back to charming and blessing. So I have practiced this art of blessing for a while, and I learned it in the Unity Church, which is a great place to go if you're new to diving into practical positive thought and you are cool with a Christian bent to it. It's a very uplifting, practical, positive, give you ways to change your thoughts kind of place. And if I'm going to a church, it would either be that or like probably a Universal Unitarian. Have not been, but I've heard good things about those. So I learned blessing from that church. And a lot of churches do blessings, and they do them in different ways. And I did look up the definition of blessing. Ha ha ha. So it's usually somewhat religious, to hallow or consecrate by religious rite or word, to bless a marriage, bless a home. The sign of the cross can sometimes be considered a blessing over something, or to invoke divine care for. So most all of the definitions that I've seen, they bring God into it. And if you remember, or if you're anyone have done any reading of the Bible, like there's blessings in the Bible, and like people would like fight for the blessings. I'm trying to remember the Bible story. I think it was like Esau, but like the mother helped the one brother trick the father into giving his blessing that was meant for the oldest son to the youngest one. So it's a very big deal in religion, these blessings. And from my perspective, a prayer could be a blessing, but also a big part of blessing is speaking it out loud. That's why I have always spent a few minutes before I do anything, a podcast or whatever, post a blog post or whatever, putting that energy of love into it, putting the energy of what I'm wanting to accomplish into it. But I feel like speaking it out loud, speaking anything out loud is very powerful. And that is so hard for me. I am such a freaking introvert. Not that that's a bad thing, but I have really hard times. And I'm like, this is like the personal growth that I've been thrown into is like speaking things out loud, thoughts and feelings, and sharing them with people you care about. And, saying blessings out loud, even if people think you're weird, and saying charms now. But so, blessings sound pretty good, and they are pretty good. They're not a bad thing, but I'm not an extreme word nerd. I know a lot of really extreme word nerds, but I do love words, and I do love books and writing and all those kind of things. I love the written word. I'm not one of the ones who necessarily is constantly looking at the meanings of words, but I listened to a podcast a while back, and I won't keep you in suspense. I will tell you that it was the Higher Side Chats. The Higher Side Chats is one of my favorite podcasts, just about magic and conspiracy and all that good stuff. So there's a lady that was on there, and her name was Laurel Arica. The host of the podcast is Greg Carlwood. So Laurel Arica's on there, and she speaks about word magic. And I've always been very intrigued by this fact that words are magical, and, like spells and rhymes and stuff, mantras, like creating your own affirmation is great and wonderful and sometimes works beautifully. But there is something powerful about an old mantra that has been said billions of times by millions of people. There's a power in our focus. There's a power in one person's focus, and there's like a ton of power when the more people focus, I think the more power. So I know I've done episodes before talking about kind of like the differences, at least I think so, between affirmations and mantras and whatnot. But just think about that when you're doing something and you're speaking something, whether you're calling in the four directions or you're reciting an Orphic hymn or you're just making your own affirmation, just think about like the power of the words and the words that you're using. And so Laurel kind of enlightened everybody who listened to the Higher Side Chat podcast. And I'll put a link to that podcast in case it helps anybody wants to find it. And also Laurel did it's a short YouTube video, maybe like 3 or 4 minutes, about word magic and about like the secret spells of the English language. And I think this happens in more than just the English language, but as everybody listening to this is probably going to be an English speaker, will be English biased, just like the whole world, our English speaking privilege. So She talks about secret spells of the English language and certain words and how, like, the way they are said, there are, double meanings. So, like, the work week as in a week, 7 days, or week as in feeling weak. And most people feel weak when they think about Monday morning if they're a 9 to 5 or Monday through Friday kind of job schedule. And, you get up in the morning, and morning kind of sounds like mourning when you're grieving someone. And she shares a lot of those. And it's just interesting to think. And, like, there are those who might say, oh, people do that, the elite have nefariously put these words here to, like, bring us down under some kind of spell. I don't know. But also, I think she kind of says that, like, things that are similar vibrations are going to end up with similar sounds or matching up. And so it's just interesting to think about. And I do like to think about words like that. And one of my favorite things is, like, words have power. Why do you think they call it spelling? Something like that, a quote. And that's one that has always kind of stuck with me, because words truly do have power. Whether or not you think they're magical, they definitely have power. And I think, the magic part depends a lot on intent and focus and how many people have focused. So I've been going on. And so now let's look at the word blessing. And this is not anything that I discovered on my own, but that I heard listening to the podcast. And she was talking about the word blessing and how it kind of sounds like be blessing. And I was like, okay, I am done for now. I'm just done for, because I can never erase that from my mind. And if you're like me, I'm really sorry if I just ruined the word blessing for you, because every time I live in South Carolina. So if you live in the South, you will know that you will go through a drive-through, you will check out of any store, and there are so many clerks or service professionals or people on the phone who will say, have a blessed day to you when you leave. And I'm always like, you just told me to have a blessed day. As if. But no, I try to remember they're doing something positive and it's all positive for them. And as I said, I still think blessing is a good thing, especially, intent, right? But that word got me thinking, like, when I was like, but why? Why would that imply to be less? And one of the things that I'm saying concerned in air quotes, because obviously there are bigger fish to fry and bigger things to be concerned about in our world than somebody blessing you, or me blessing somebody and doing something that's not energetically the best. But here's what I came to think about that, because we usually do that, may this happen, may that happen. And it's almost as if we're giving up that responsibility of ourself. And so I think that's kind of a way that we could be less, like, we're stepping into that, like, may this happen, but it's not really up to me. I'm just hoping it does or wishing it for you, but I'm not invoking it. I'm just saying, hey, may it happen, instead of I charm this to happen, or I invoke this spirit to bring apart this, or I invoke love now. Like, there's a little bit of a difference between may there be love here, or I invoke love here, or I charm this place to be filled with love, right? And the difference to me is personal power. And one of the reasons I was gone for a long time is I gave away my personal power and I let it be drained from me. And I was in a really bad place energetically. And so I found out also that calling back your power and then just giving it away or pouring it out on the ground, the deficit is like, I had to have a coach to point that out to me, what I was doing to myself. So as I go through life now, I'm looking for places where I might be giving away my personal power. And as I said in my little first reboot thing, I'm looking at things differently because things didn't always work for me. Does that mean that I don't believe in the law of attraction? No, I've never been a fan of that word, though. You could go back to my first book, Personal Alchemy, and see that I'm not a fan of that word. I feel like it's more like we're transforming ourselves and changing our vibration and pulling these things in than, I mean, I know the law of attraction like attracts like, but I feel like it's our personal power that we shift who we are to bring these things to us. And if we don't shift who we are, sometimes we can still attract things, but it doesn't last because we haven't grown. Yeah, growth. Whew, it's a big thing. So that's why I'm kind of feeling like it's really important to look at where we give away our personal power. And so to me, blessing is great. It's wonderful. And if you like doing it, by all means, do it. And I'm not saying I won't ever do that again because it's something that I have done for years, but I'm really working on changing my language to be more precise, more of what I really want in the world, what I want to create. And I think that precision is good in magic and law of attraction and alchemy and anything that is deliberate creation. So that being said, one of my thoughts is that using that language of either charming or invoking, and that's probably not quite the same thing. But I think when you're invoking your own power over something, or, if you work with spirits or ancestors or what, you could invoke in that way too, to call out what you want rather than saying, hey, may it happen, because may it happen or maybe it won't, right? It may happen, maybe yes, maybe no. I just feel like there is a stronger sense of power around charming. And I'm going to look and see. I don't know that it's still available. One of my favorite podcasters, people actually, I've never met this person. I just kind of fangirl over him, and his name is Ariel, and he does Ariel's Druidic Craft of the Wise, and he also did the Witch's Primer, both very good. So if you can get your hands on copies, I saved all of his iTunes stuff when he announced that he was going off air. I saved all of his stuff because he's just fabulous, but he does a whole really good podcast on living a charming life. So if it happens to be still available, I will get that link for you, but I'm not sure that it is. With that said, I decided I would just share a little bit from what he said in there. And he talked kind of like I did in the last episode, like macrodosing and microdosing magic, small acts daily versus one big ritual. Both are great. Both are important. And probably if you do little small ones every day, you're not going to have emergency means as much for a big ritual. And not to say that you need an emergency to do a big ritual. I think you should always find days that have meaning to you in the year and do them, like Yule, the equinoxes, Samhain, Mabon, and sometimes I do them and sometimes I don't, honestly. Like this last, I think it's Mabon just passed, and the equinox, and I was like, yeah, I'm not there right now. But I did do a big ritual on this past Friday the 13th with the full moon and everything. And I did promise to talk about some rituals and initiations that I've recently done. And I'm going to save it, obviously, for a few episodes down the road. I'm just kind of like playing with that and seeing everything that played out. Well, I'm sure there'll be more to play out with it. And I'm hopefully going to get my daughter on to talk with me. She's away at college, so we're trying to coordinate doing some podcasts together because we have really deep philosophical, magical conversations around magic and whatnot. And she's done one of these initiations too, and I think she's going to do some more. At least I know of one that she's done. So back off of that tangent, back to the charming. So he talks about in this podcast charming all the little things in your life, like your wallet if you need more money, or your debit card, or your mailbox if money comes in the mail, your car, your phone, your shoes, your garden and your flowers to get better plants. And yeah, you can charm pretty much your whole life, right? You decide how much of that you want to do, but it's not a bad focus to go through your day charming little things along the way. So what would that mean? That's just really making these statements. Best if you can do it out loud, but you don't necessarily want to be doing it in the grocery store either, because, I think it was like Marianne Williamson who once said, like, sometimes you should be thinking Jesus sent me, but don't necessarily tell people, because just, not everyone is as cool as we are, unfortunately. So taking these words, and I'm going to give you an experiment to work with charming something here at the end, and I would love to hear what you think about or what happens for you when you play with this charming experiment. And that's interesting. I just thought about Prince Charming and how he charmed the princess, and it's interesting. Prince Charming, I guess, was relying on his own powers rather than someone else's powers to get things done. And isn't it lovely how stories and fairy tales are now changing, so we don't have to have the prince come and do the charming, that the females can start doing that themselves. Not that we haven't always had that ability, but fairy tales didn't seem to believe that, And of course, you can think of everyone as just an aspect of personality. But I'm going to stop going off on tangents. I really am. I recently discovered that, shock among shocks, that I have a little bit of ADD in me. A little bit. Just a tiny touch. And I haven't actually been officially diagnosed, but I found from my children's issues that, oh yes, I do the same thing. So I'm self-diagnosing, which is probably a dangerous, slippery slope. But I'm charming it as good for me, that my brain can go into different directions. So, the aspects of charming are using words and saying them out loud. And so let's just get right into it a little bit, and the things that you can do for the experiment. This is something that I've actually done since I read the book Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. And I'm going to put a link in the show notes. I should make writing down all these links. But I'm going to put a link in the show notes for her books. I have them on my Amazon marketplace under my favorite magical fiction. But I'm also going to see if I can find a link for you guys for the audiobooks. I am an Amazon affiliate, so I like to let people know they're an Amazon influencer. But these books are fiction, but they're really fun, especially if you like alchemy. My favorite is the second one, where they kind of go back into Elizabethan England. And that one is just really fun and has a lot of alchemy, practical alchemy going on. And so I love the story. But one of the things that they do in it is the skill is, I think it was called gramarye. And that's basically the writing of these spells that were words, and they rhymed or had alliteration in them. And so, like, that was a skill that some of these witches had. And so I would do that with things that I was creating in my life. I would write these short little poems that I could say over and over in my head, or here's a little trick technique. If you're like me and you have very little time by yourself and you're around, your kids, well, my kids already think I'm crazy, but you don't necessarily want to go around charming things out loud that much. Obviously, when you're home alone, take some time to do that, and take some time to open sacred space and whatever you do that. And if you come up with a certain charm for something, do that one time, at least one time out loud, but memorize that little charm and say it in your head, say out loud when you're driving in your car. Like, I work with affirmations and mantras and things like that a lot when I'm in my car by myself driving, because you can just say them. And vibration is a powerful thing, right? Our minds are powerful too, but like when our mind, our brain, our consciousness hears those words said out loud, it does something. It's like what I learned after doing ritual and actually lighting candles and leaving out offerings. It does something. We're physical beings in a physical world. And I'm a person who has like tried a lot to like live inside my mind, and it just doesn't work in this world as good as it does if you will do both. Live out here in the physical world and do physical world things. Say words out loud where they can be heard, not just in your mind. Actually light a candle. Actually put out a bowl of water for your ancestors. Actually light that incense. Actually draw a sigil. You know, I'm going to tell you, I was so lazy for so long because I did not think I had to do that. I thought I could do everything with my mind, and we can do a lot with our mind. But I guess there is a reason why we're in a physical body. So what I am proposing for us to do as an experiment is to decide one thing in your life that you would like to charm. Be it your income, be it your car, be it... I hesitate on saying relationship, but you know, if it calls to you, it calls to you. Your house, your workplace. What were some of the things that I had written down, saved before? Your garden, your food, so that it tastes really good. So decide on something that you want to charm, and then write a charm. Just a simple little charm. It can be as easy as one sentence. It can be as long as a short 5 or 6 line poem. I wouldn't go much past that because I want you to be able to memorize it and say it at least several times a day in a time that makes sense, right? So you're not gonna necessarily be like taking a shower, charming your wallet. I mean, you could, but it's best probably if you have your wallet in hand and you're thinking about those type things. So pick the thing to charm. This is the experiment. Pick the thing to charm. I'll put this list in the show notes too. Pick the thing to charm, write a charm for it, and then every day for at least a week, find a time to speak out the charm, preferably at least once a day out loud and, you know, more in your head. And then I want you to do one more thing, which is feed your charm, okay? I want you to do a physical action related to this charm. So let me give you a few ideas. If you're going to charm your wallet, I want you to think of something that you could put on your wallet as like an offering, a physical feeding of the charm, giving that energy and vibration. So what could you do? You could put a drop of Florida water on it every day. Or you could put a drop of money drawing oil on it every day. And, you know, you don't necessarily have to have these specialty magical items laying around. You could just put on a perfume that smells really good and, you know, evokes a feeling of richness for you. Whatever works and feels good to you, and just kind of let your intuition be your guide. So you could do that with that. Your car, you could do the same. You could just put a drop of something in there every day. If you're trying to charm your house, maybe just put out a nice clean bowl of water every day as an offering to your house and any land spirits and house spirits that dwell around it. So some of this is going to be on you to kind of think about, just ask yourself that question, you know, what would feed this charm? What would be the physical act that I could do that would increase my focus on it and the vibration of said charm? So that's it in a nutshell. So just to reiterate, blessings are not bad, but I just think charms hold a lot more personal power. And I would love to see what happens to you when you play with charming something in your life. And in fact, I will give you a caveat. I did say you can like charm so many things in your life. And that's part of like what I've taught people in Daily Alchemy, probably in just different words, like how to fit magical, spiritual alchemy practices into your daily life, right? Because we have busy daily lives. A lot of us cannot do rituals every single day. And we can do little rituals actually, but we just can't do like big drawn out things every single day. And we don't have to, because the big, doing a little something every day makes a big difference. But I will ask you, probably stick with one charm for at least a week, maybe even a month, because it takes time for like that energy to shift and the vibration to come around and to kind of see what comes from that. And sometimes don't be discouraged if you feel like, oh, I did it and nothing happened. I would consider like, just if you see that happening after a week, keep doing it, keep feeding it for at least a month, and then decide. Maybe you can just let it go at that point, or you can keep doing it, or you can add in other things. But I just like you to play with one aspect so that you can see the energy shift around that one area of your life. And then once you've seen that, you may see the benefit of doing more will be more obvious, and it won't be such a stress and a strain to do that, and just make it a normal part of your daily charming life. We live the charmed life here. It's kind of like the good life, but it's just a little bit more fun, right? Life is more fun with magic. I've thought about this a lot. Like sometimes when we think of life being like totally perfect, it would just be so boring. And so I love all the interesting, different magical occult, all that stuff out there that makes life more fun. Like we can kind of create this fun drama of seeing what we can bring into our lives by doing this kind of work. And I'm here to raise my hand and say, you may bring things into your life that you don't like at first, because I did a lot of that in this past year. But it was definitely time, and I'm still on a process with this, but I'm growing and learning so much. I'm almost 50 years old. I'm 49, and I think I have learned, I know I have learned more in this past year, and really, really deep down got some serious lessons on life and humility and being present, being real, I wanted to say fearless, being fearless, less fearful every day, baby steps around fear than I ever learned in college and really in the 48 years preceding this year. Yeah. And I have to say that, like, thank God. Thank God that happened, or thank Venus, thank whoever, thank the divine, the unnameable energy of the universe that I've started to grow past in some of these areas that I was just stubbornly digging my heels in. And I've found out that magic doesn't necessarily equal personal growth or growth in any other area, right? But if you don't have that growth and you magically ask for something that requires growth or knowledge, you may get thrust into learning it. So that's my caveat, but it's still so good. Even in the pain, it's so good. So don't be afraid to bite off more than you can chew, because that's how you get strong jaws. And yeah, that's how you get to live the charmed life. You charm things, you play with things, and then you just, you deal with biting off all that you bit off. I'm going to stop now before this just goes way wrong. I feel like it may have already, but I'm not even going to edit it out, okay? So I'm just going to say, let's be change-making descendants Let's be future exalted ancestors, and let's live magically in the now. All right, loves, until next time, get to experimenting, and please do reach out to me. Go to dailyalchemy.com. You can find all my links and let me know how your experiment is going. I would love to hear that. And if you have something like really cool that happens, reach out and I'd love to have you on this show and tell everyone else about it, because this is the place for tips and true stories and for us to help each other with our magical lives and let each other know what happens for us. And even though it's an art and it happens differently for everyone, there are still some similarities and some good practices that bring about good results. And it's always exciting and fun to see what happens for each other. So, bon voyage until next week.